The following content does not reflect the opinions of Fox Sports Radio. If you think it does, then you're an idiot.
Top story.
Well, the dust has settled on NFL free agency. And, Tony, it's time for us to evaluate how each NFC East team did. And, we're always coming up with new ideas on this.
Here we are.
New segments, original.
Yep, that's what we do.
And that's why right now we're going to do something, clever. In school, you remember how you'd get, grades? Remember that?
Yup, sure do.
Yeah, so here's what we're going to do. Get this, people. All right, follow. We're going to give grades to football teams.
Just
based
so
on
smart
how they
there.
did in free agency. Yup, and we're going to kick this off with the Eagles. After much evaluation and thoughtful consideration, we are giving them an A+++. And, Tony, it's very clear they had a strategy all along, even before free agency started, didn't they?
Absolutely. You see, the Eagles knew they needed to get a jump start on free agency. And the only way to do that was to tank the end of the season and then lose their first playoff game before the first quarter was even over. That gave them a head start on free agency and allowed them to nab all the best players while other teams were still foolishly trying to win the Super Bowl.
Yup, and when the Eagles announced the signing of former Bucs linebacker Devin White, well, you could easily see what was going on there. They used that playoff game versus the Bucs not to win, but to scout new talent for this season. That game was basically just a tryout for the Eagles roster.
Nick Sirianni, such a forward thinker.
Yeah, and also another thing we got to point out here, a lot of idiots. They're saying why did the Eagles get Kenny Pickett when they could have gotten Justin Fields for basically the same amount of picks?
Obvious.
You're not thinking it through, people. Look at the names. Justin, Jalen.
Exactly.
You know how confusing that would be? Those
Justin,
two names?
Jalen. Who, me? Wait, who? Jalen, Justin.
See, even there, I couldn't tell what you said, Tony.
I couldn't tell either, and I was saying it.
Yeah, well, there you go. Anyway, all right. Let's move on. Keep the segment going. We're going to the Cowboys. And after much careful consideration, we are giving them an F-. And that's because they've only added, out of all the players out there, they've added one player to their roster. And, Tony, this is just par for the course with them, isn't it?
Did the Cowboys even know free agency even started?
Who knows?
I mean, we know Dallas has terrible clock management during the season, but now they clearly have it in the offseason too.
Yep.
If you ask me, I think Jerry Jones should consider buying an electronic organizer or Palm Pilot or something.
Yep.
I mean, are we sure that they know the draft is like a few weeks away? Because if not, somebody needs to tell them.
Yeah, nobody knows, Tony. Anyway, while we're on the subject here, there's also more news for the Cowboys, some very serious news. Dak Prescott is countersuing a woman who claims he assaulted her in 2017. And, while we can't comment on the veracity of the story itself, we can tell you that this is already having a huge ripple effect through the league, isn't it, Tony?
Yes, according to my sources, in light of these serious allegations, Dak is now receiving significant interest from the Cleveland Browns, who feel he'll be a great fit in their quarterback room with Deshaun Watson and their new QB, Jameis Winston.
Wow.
In fact, if Dak is found to have committed these crimes, the Browns are reportedly willing to offer him a historic $500 million in guaranteed money. So we'll be keeping a close eye on this story.
Just bombshell investigative reporting there, Tony. And, well, we're running out of time on this segment. So let's just go ahead and round out the other draft grades. Giants and Commanders, nothing they do is going to make any difference. So just give them that minuses. All right.
Yeah, they
All
suck.
right, let's just move on to college basketball and the big tournament this time of year. Of course, we're talking about the NIT, which, if you don't know, stands for not in tournament. Anyway, the people always say, well, the NCAA tourney is the better tourney because it has the top teams. But no, the NIT is way better, isn't it, Tony?
The stakes are way higher in the NIT than the NCAA tournament. I mean, think about it. If you lose in the first round of the NIT, then that makes you the worst team in the entire world.
Yep.
When you watch the players in the NIT, they're not playing for glory. They're playing to avoid a lifetime of shame. That is real motivation.
Great point, Tony. And, I don't want to be crass
Thank you.
here, but as we always say, if you go on a date with a 10 and you don't get any, well, so what? You tried.
But no big
But
deal.
if you go on a date with a 1 and you don't get any,
Oh.
well, you need to go
Bro.
join another species or something, because you're not getting
bro.
any here.
Maybe just don't enter any rooms that have lights in them or something, bro.
Terrific advice, Tony. And staying in college basketball, we need to defend a legend who is under fire. Of course, we're talking about the great and always unfairly maligned Rick Pitino.
Legend,
he's taking
bro.
criticism because he pulled his team, St. John's, out of the NIT because they got snubbed by the NCAA tournament committee. And Tony, we know that Pitino is making the right move, isn't he?
Absolutely. We all know that Rick Pitino always knows when it's the right time to pull out.
Yep.
I've spoken to many sources inside the basketball industry and the escort services industry, and they all say the same thing. Nobody's better at knowing when to pull out than Coach Pitino.
Yep.
Just ask any of the waiters at the Italian restaurants.
Yep.
They say that when Rick Pitino's having sex under the table, he knows when to briefly pause so not to disturb any passing customers.
Yep.
That's Coach Pitino, always showing sound judgment.
Just such great testimony on Coach Pitino's behalf. I'm sure he's very thankful to
Thank
you right
you.
now, Tony.
Absolutely.
And, all right, well,
That's Coach
someone we may or
Pitino.
may not be thankful for. We got our callers. Looks like the phone lines are lighting up. All right, so here we go this week, Tony. Let's just go ahead and open up
Yeah.
the Fusco Sports Hotline.